Congratulations and celebrations and so on. In this special edition of our podcast, The Four Speeches, we'll look at the celebration speech, the eulogy celebrating either someone turning 50 years or, for instance, a new ship that you're sending off into the ocean, or we'll not look particularly at celebrating a friend, but what does a corporate leader do when he or she gives a celebration speech? Let's say with a 50th anniversary. How should you speak, or how should he address? What's important?
That's a good question. If we turn to the rhetorical tradition, they're mostly concerned with people in high office, for example,
yes.
Emperors, princes.
Usually those were the ones who anyone spoke to. I mean,
yes, they received the praises.
Yeah, exactly.
And well, basically there are two elements in a celebration speech. It's a eulogy, and you do a eulogy by praising or by blaming.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you either, if you want to celebrate a person, you praise his
virtues,
qualities, qualities, virtues, and you blame those of his adversaries or those he don't agree with, for having vices that he or she do not have.
So, in a sense, there's then this one person, or also with the example of this ship, who's given a name, who's in the center of attention, and you speak in that very moment. So it's a speak celebrating the moment and celebrating the person who's in the center of attention.
Exactly. It doesn't turn. You don't turn the head towards the past.
No.
And
not so much to the future either.
No.
You raise your glasses.
However, we could perhaps add that you might turn. That there might be an indirect connection with the future, because what you are praising might be of interest for the firm or for the position that you represent to grow or to propel or to support. Namely, for example, the virtue of being able to achieve something great.
Or if the worker in question is particularly creative or embodying certain virtues that you find are inherent to the ethos or of this particular firm or organization.
Yes, because a clever official or a clever leader would then frame the
speech.
Yes, and also frame the one who is being celebrated into the
sort of exemplary.
Yes, and see him as an example of the way the other partitioners or the partakers in this envisioned future might be, or the virtues that could be relevant.
So it's in a sense, it's here we have John. John's turning 50 years today, and he's doing this. He has this quality and this quality. And maybe John is an example for us to follow. Is that sort of a way to set it up when you do celebration speech?
Well, you are.
Congratulations and celebrations and so on. In this special edition of our podcast, The Four Speeches, we'll look at the celebration speech, the eulogy celebrating either someone turning 50 years or, for instance, a new ship that you're sending off into the ocean, or we'll not look particularly at celebrating a friend, but what does a corporate leader do when he or she gives a celebration speech? Let's say with a 50th anniversary. How should you speak, or how should he address? What's important?
That's a good question. If we turn to the rhetorical tradition, they're mostly concerned with people in high office, for example,
yes.
Emperors, princes.
Usually those were the ones who anyone spoke to. I mean,
yes, they received the praises.
Yeah, exactly.
And well, basically there are two elements in a celebration speech. It's a eulogy, and you do a eulogy by praising or by blaming.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you either, if you want to celebrate a person, you praise his
virtues,
qualities,
yes,
qualities, virtues, and you blame those of his adversaries or those he don't agree with, for having vices that he or she do not
have. So, in a sense, there's then this one person, or also with the example of this ship who's given a name, who's in the center of attention, and you speak in that very moment. So it's a speak celebrating the moment and celebrating the person who's in the center of attention.
Exactly. It doesn't turn. You don't turn the head towards the past.
No.
And
not so much to the future either.
No.
You raise your glass.
However, we could perhaps add that you might turn. That there might be an indirect connection with the future, because what you are praising might be of interest for the firm or for the position that you represent to grow or to propel or to support. Namely, for example, the virtue of being able to achieve something great.
Or if the worker in question is particularly creative or embodying certain virtues that you find are inherent to the ethos or of this particular firm or organization.
Yes, because a clever official or a clever leader would then frame the
speech.
Yes, and also frame the one who is being celebrated into the
as sort of exemplary.
Yes, and see him as an example of the way the other petitioners or the partakers in this envisioned future might be, or the virtues that could be relevant.
So it's in a sense, it's here we have John. John's turning 50 years today, and he's doing this. He has this quality and this quality, and maybe John is an example for us to follow. Is that sort of a way to set it up when you do a celebration speech?
Well, you're a handball trainer, aren't you?
I am. Yeah.
So if one of your boys turned 15, you could perhaps say, as the other players hear it, that here is John, 15, and he comes to practice handball every day.
Or he comes 15 minutes early.
Yeah,
and in that sense,
even better.
So he embodies the idea of being. Actually, I've given a few of these sort of celebration speeches. I actually had one speech where I told them about the Swedish ski jumper Jan Boklöv, and how he embodied. I mean, he was a nerd, and he was an anti-hero in a way, until he invented this very strange way of ski jumping, and broke all the rules. So I told them that because he was so curious, because he invested so much time in trying out new things, he became, you could call it a prophet, a reformer, whatever, for this particular sport. So I said to them, one important virtue for you as a handball player would be to try to be that Jan Boklöv of handball, to find that new feint, the new shot that no one has discovered so far.
So it would be the anti-hero of handball.
Yeah, in a sense, yeah. So, but let's say you are a corporate leader then, and you want to praise someone who's either going into pension or who's turning 50. Where do you start? So it's a big, I think that's the problem for many people when they're going to give a speech. Is where do you start? What's the first thing?
Yeah, I think a very, very good advice is not to focus on your own abilities of giving the speech.
Yeah, so many people. I'm not a speaker, and I don't. So you have this sort of. That's not
That's not recommendable, and it's not recommendable to explain your own relations with one who is going
the center of attention.
Because it just leads the attention away from him or her to you.
Yeah,
so
your need to justify that I'm to speak in this moment. You should sort of let that go.
Well, that's my recommendation.
Yeah.
There's a very interesting point that the old rhetorical experts have given, and that is just to focus on the difficulty of the task. It's difficult to, this person is so interesting. He or she has so many features that it will
where to start.
Yeah. And perhaps we even have to call for the poets.
Yeah. So in a sense that is a bit like when you want to speak about or sing to the divine. How am I to praise this thing that is so favorable, so fantastic, so uplifted?
Well, yes. If the person that we are celebrated is not that favorable. we could also use it. You could also let the audience become poets by just saying where to begin.
Exactly. So where to begin leaves a sort of ironic tone to it. But so more as a physical pose, this hesitation in the beginning of the speech, sort of centering yourself without focusing on yourself. You can see that where you signal this, where to begin when I am to praise this, sort of. That's also, it can, if it's done in the right way, create a sort of awe, or I'm not saying I'm standing on holy ground, but this person deserves the best from us.
Yes. Well, yes, and it is also there's a correspondence between the grandness of the task that you are given as a speaker, because
when you
the person standing in front of you that you're going to praise or celebrate is a person of. It's a great thing to be a person, especially if you have 50 years. I mean, 50 years.
It's fantastic.
Many hours.
Yeah, exactly. So, but then, having done that sort of introduction, I mean, there are many ways to do it. You could start with a story. That's always a safe thing, which leads into that same track. So this celebration speech is a eulogy, and when you're at a memorial service, when someone has deceased and you're commemorating them, then that's also eulogy. And then it's very typical, or it would be very unconventional, not to start with the birth of the person. So also in the rhetorical tradition, you'd start with.
It's very good. It's a very good point.
Yeah.
Start with the birth.
Yeah.
Perhaps even start with the place where the person comes from. It might be of relevance for the nature of a person. Where, I mean, I come from the west coast of Norway.
Exactly.
And it has probably influenced me in ways I cannot imagine. Yes.
Exactly.
So the birth could also be connected to the place, but also to the family, to the ancestors.
Yeah. The city. So one, I just got an idea while talking here. So one way could be, because where you start the story is very important. So you could start the story by telling, if I was your leader and was speaking at your 50th birthday, I could start. Imagine the 1970s, the beginning of the 1970s on the west coast of Norway. It was tough times. And how on earth could a man and a woman fall in love at that time, even conceive, somewhere to start that would lead to the miraculous wonder that you appeared on earth. You see, so that could be told in different ways.
Yes, because the introduction that you suggest now could also lead to a contrast, that this person is is a different species than all his comrades. It's a different thing. Maybe this man born in the 70s in the west coast of Norway is a cosmopolitan.
Maybe so. But if the subject or the one we're supposed to celebrate is not favorable, everyone knows that, well, how is he going to put this into words? That this guy who's turning 50, well, he's a liar. Yeah, he's not to be trusted. How do you celebrate someone who's not favorable?
Well, there are many things to you
need to do a cover up of some sort.
Yes, one way of doing that is to say, for example, as one pastor taught me, that was to say, for example, at the funeral, things were not so easy.
Things were not so easy.
That's a possibility. Another one is to say, given the cards, she had received.
She handled it well, or something.
She played her hand very, very well.
Yeah.
And it could also, you could also frame the vices in a more mildly manner, because perhaps you could frame for example, if the thief or if the liar was in a financial environment, you could perhaps say he had a very creative
approach to
accounting.
To accounting, oh yeah. And that
or his idea of
what is mine and what is yours.
Yes, and property was for him a debatable thing.
Or what was he had a flexible approach to what was mine and what is yours.
Exactly.
So but it's a tricky path, isn't it? So you have to but I think even when the subject is not favorable and you're speaking in the context of a corporate firm or a corporation or an organization, what you're praising, it's not just the person, but it's the ethos or the legacy of the company or the thing that is. So if it's the janitor of a big company, you're not just praising Martin, who's turning 50. You're trying to tell why he's incorporating the values or the ethos of this organization and which way he does it.
Let's take an example. For example, if this was a woman in her 50s, having been one of the first to take on leadership positions.
Exactly. Yeah.
You could say, now, what you have done is paving the way for more women to come. If the firm or the company has a legacy of recruiting from both sexes, of both genders.
Both genders. And even if that's a goal for the future.
All the sexes.
All the sexes, indeed. But if we continue then from, having told the story of the origin of the person, where he or she comes from, the birth, the city, the place, and I think framing that through stories is really helpful, or framing it through a metaphor of some sort, that you were the flower of the West Coast desert or whatever, something that makes you stand out, and which also could point to the ethos or the legacy of the particular company at hand. So what's the next thing we move on to? What do you praise then?
Well, you could, as you suggest, you could say that the particular area that he or she represents, for example, she might come from a mountainous area, and you could describe that area as an area where people climb
to the summits of our existence.
Yes, and to combat
the forces of nature or whatever,
and to climb mountains.
Yeah.
That's an
Climb every mountain. Yeah, you have it all there. So it's sort of, so you use the nature.
Don't stop at the top.
No.
Keep on.
Keep moving. The sky's the limit. So in that sense, we talked about this before, but nature metaphors or putting story in nature is always securing sort of the grand story here. Yes. So instead of putting someone in an IKEA sort of manual, you put them in a nature landscape and describe how they belong to something great.
Yes, and that they contribute also by just their very existence, because they come from a certain place.
Or if you come from a city or a big city, you come from the jungle and you maneuvered through the vast avenues of whatever. So
yes, and one feature of Norwegian existence that is highly underrated is the coastline.
Yeah.
So you could say, well, you come from this direct from the sea. You have you know what it means to be sort of having a great vision of the great existence of being a human being.
Yeah.
I think this tapping into these nature metaphors,
which also
has a great rhetorical force.
Yeah, and it points to the origin of the person, and it also points to the origin of a company or a firm, that it belongs to something greater than just itself.
Yes.
So I think that's a key thing in every sort of eulogy or every speech, that you point out that this is not just about you, not just about us. This is about something bigger.
Mm.
So in that sense, you make people feel that we're part of something great. So in many speeches, it's a point to, you should not take out all the energy at the beginning of the speech. So if I kept on singing congratulations, it'll be pathetic and all the energy would be sort of sucked out of the beginning. So in that sense, you need to also build it up gradually. How do you do that?
Well, if you have these stages, it is not a coincidence that we started with birth, because it has a line, and
it's sort of matter-of-factly as well. Everyone could check it out. It's not, in that sense, debatable. Yeah.
Yes, and it is also a build-up that people,
to the next step.
Yeah, and people recognize that when you start with the birth, you will gradually come to the present where we are today.
So you sort of set up a journey. So we put our ship, or to use that metaphor, at the beginning, at your birth, or just before your birth, and then we're going to sail here to the present moment.
Yes, but what the rhetorical tradition do is that they sort of dwell on places. So nature is one of them, and another place or locus, as it were, is the body.
The body, your actual body.
Because I think that's also underrated.
But it's sort of
it's gravely underrated in our
to praise the body.
Yes, because.
But it's sort of risky, isn't it?
It is risky, of course. But we have a body.
We do.
and the intellectual virtues are always overrated.
Overrated, also in praising, yeah?
Yes, but the bodies.
But how do you praise the body without coming forth as offensive in some sense?
For example, let's take the smile of a person.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Is that what you meet is the face, isn't it? And a certain artifact of the face. Mm-hmm. Or other persons have...
But it's sort of the surprising thing. If I'd praise your shoulders, let's say.
Yes.
And if I'm able to tell a story about how your shoulders tell the story of you, that would be surprising instead of...
Okay. Let me then take a very classical thing.
Yeah, okay.
And that's the hand.
Uh-huh.
And if you say, for example, to a person, and then he raised his hand, and then he started to become engaged in the subject that he had in mind, or that he wanted to, or she wanted to explain, and the hand gave these wonderful circles.
Yeah.
What you do is that you take a part of the body, namely the hand.
Yes.
and you make it unto a symbol.
Yeah.
The hand, the as a conductor, he was then conducting his speech or his talk.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good thing of reminding us that when you do a celebrative speech, you need to be concrete.
Yes, something that, but also this, I mean, the concrete thing has a metaphorical value, so you have to make sure that the metaphor doesn't strike back in ways you don't want it to strike back. So, but that's the body, the nature first. It's, I mean, most people I think would be accustomed to.
I have one more.
You have one more of the body. You're really into this body thing, I can see. Yeah,
and that's perhaps praising the ear.
Yes. Oh, yeah, yeah, and that also
because some people have very, very fine-tuned ears. They can hear things.
And also then the physical thing with your body could be linked to a particular virtue.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
we want this place to be a place of good listeners.
Exactly. So
and she can be our example.
So the way your body works or is sort of points to our way of being in this particular organization. You mentioned an intellectual society. How should we address a person's intellectual capacities or education or achievements in that? It probably depends on what sort of company or firm this is. Or
yes, but everyone has received education
in some sense, yeah.
Yes, and some of it can be traced back to particular figures, schools.
Exactly.
Trains of thoughts. There's something in John of Salisbury's idea that we stand on giants' shoulders, and to describe.
So you have the shoulders thing again, yeah.
Exactly, and these are sort of the building blocks of our humanity, if I may.
Yeah.
So I think at some point to describe a person is also to describe the intellectual upbringing, even if it's
maybe with a dash of creativity, not just mentioning you graduated from XX school in the year no. So it's sort of telling that story and how that story belongs to a greater narrative of formation, maybe.
Yes, because if you just cite where they have gone to school, you don't
You don't tell a story. It's no.
Exactly. It's just a formal address.
Yeah.
But to describe the most important teacher, for example, that's something completely different.
Exactly.
And it throws light on a very interesting subject.
I mean, every person, if it's not a ship, then has some actions or some deeds that they might have done through the course of their lives. And how do you tell about them in a celebration speech? I mean, if it might be even at a wedding, if it's a mom and dad telling about their the bride that they're now giving away, putting that in quotation marks. There's always, in some cultures there would be the temptation to tell about all the deeds. So I guess here it's a point to find the stories that could describe a greater reality and point to. What do you think?
Yes, the old tradition recommends telling war stories over peace stories,
because courage in war was more.
It was a more important virtue. On the other hand, what they thought was that in war, your character is exposed to the whole world.
Exactly. Yeah.
And your innermost being comes to the fore. So if you are a man of courage, it will be seen in times of war.
So in one sense, in a celebration speech, you tell about. I mean, very few people in our part of the world have really been participating in a war, but maybe maybe a conflict then. This conflict showed your true character, if that's possible to tell that story.
Yes, if a war is merely a military action, then you're of course you're correct. but there are small wars
with quotation marks.
or conflicts that are fought over, and some are really important, either for the firm, for the company, or perhaps also for the individual.
Exactly.
And to describe behavior in more or less extreme situations, at least seen from the old tradition, that would be favorable.
Yeah. So trying to, when the going gets tough, then your true character was revealed, and that's what I want to tell the story about now.
Yes.
Yeah. Finally here, once again, this building up the speech. One way, I guess, to tell these stories that we pointed to now would be to say, if I were to praise you, I might start with your birth. Your birth was miraculous, and then you'd go on. Mm-hmm. But I won't start with that. I'll go on, and then you sort of build it up. You grew up, and I could praise you for your how you grew up in the nature, in the mountains, and all you did that. But that's not what the story I want to tell. So sort of find ways of keeping the audience expect that there will be more. We're coming to the culmination at some point here that will reveal all this minor sort of revealing of who you are will lead to the big sort of moment where we know, yes, this is John, and now we know who John embodies a particular virtue that is also pertinent and fitting or important for this company or firm. So how do you end a celebration speech? I mean, raising the glass is an easy thing. If one say cheers, he's a jolly good fellow, you can sing a song.
Yes.
Maybe this, because the interesting thing here is that if we look at the rhetorical tradition of at least the ancient one, they recommended a sort of epilogue, a final comparison with other people around, and then maybe a prayer. Mm. And if you're not in a very religious tradition, you won't give a prayer at the end, but what could be sort of equivalent to that moment, because it's the awe moment where we come to the culmination of a celebration speech.
Yes, as we said in the start of this podcast, the idea of saying something about